Welcome to the program, everybody from the edge of America. I'm Rick Amato. Well, campaigning for president in October of 2008, President Obama said he loved America and then added, "We are just 5 days away from fundamentally transforming it." If presidents are judged by how well they achieve their goals, then consider this presidency a smashing success. I mean, after all, it's not every day that the U.S. has its debt credit rating downgraded by a communist country, as happened yesterday when a Chinese credit rating agency downgraded the U.S. credit rating. Think about that for a moment. A communist country has the gall, has the market credibility, if you will, to weigh into the global marketplace with their negative outlook and opinion on a nation whose history is built on free markets and capitalism. Consider America transformed. Joining me at this time to discuss this topic and others is the editor-in-chief of Forbes magazine and a former candidate for U.S. President, Steve Forbes. Steve, welcome to our program here on our soft launch of the One America News Network and the Rick Amato Show.
Good to be with you, Rick. Thank you.
Now, you strike me as a genuinely optimistic person. That's the persona I pick up from you when I watch you on Fox and elsewhere. So my question is this, with that as my perception, with the growth of government under Obamacare growing, with the pop culture narrative supporting Occupy Wall Street more than they do, say, the fiscally conservative Tea Party groups, and with polls showing that young people in America today do not believe the American dream ever even existed, what's your outlook for America's economic and financial future?
Well, I think if you look beneath the surface of things, I think you're going to start to see real transformations, positive transformations in this country. The real breakdown in Washington in recent days was a result of strategic errors by the Republicans, not because public opinion is enamored with Obamacare. And if you look at what governors are doing around this country, Governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, turning that into a right-to-work state, whoever would have conceived of that a few years ago.
Good point.
Scott Walker, what he's doing in Wisconsin, and what Chris Christie with the Democratic legislature got done in New Jersey. Bobby Jindal's got some school reforms in Louisiana. So governors are doing real things, and I think that's going to be the theme for 2016.
Let me ask you, should there be, in terms of the Republican Party, in terms of 2016, should we when I say we, should the Republican Party as a collective be looking for a governor? Governors have more success than senators in running for the presidency. Given the track record that you just laid out, should we be looking for someone to emerge from the list that currently are out there of Rand Paul and so forth?
Well, I think obviously Rand Paul and some other senators are going to give a hard look at 2016, and they may emerge successfully. But I think voters are going to be very open to governors who've done real things. I mean, Ronald Reagan, they try to portray him as a kook, right-wing extremist from the West Coast, but he ran successfully the largest state in the Union. And so people figured on the crisis of 1980, let's give this guy a chance. I think we're going to have not a good country in 2016, not as good as it should be. And so people are going to be in a mood. Who can not only talk, but who can deliver, and done so like Scott Walker did in the face of a severe crisis when they try to bring him down.
You haven't disappointed me in my opinion as a genuine optimist, Steve Forbes. So put differently, despite the fact that the Democratic Party owns the media, there's a report out today that there were 41 stories that in the media that blamed Republicans for the shutdown, 0 that blamed Democrats. Despite the fact that the left owns the media narrative, they own the pop culture narrative, which all but made it impossible in my mind for Mitt Romney or anyone to win in 2012. We will see the era of Carter Reagan when pain hits home and people overlook what's being told to them by the media and the pop culture. That's sort of what your outlook is.
Well, I think if Ronald Reagan could do what he did in the 1980s when you only had three major networks, all of whom were hostile to him. Most of the major papers were hostile to him, but he found a way to get a message to the American people. Today, we've got talk radio, we've got online, we've got you, we've got others to get the message out there. Instead of bellyaching about the media, which we know is a problem, find ways to move around it, find ways to burrow under it, come up with strategies that appeal to people over the heads of the traditional media, legacy media. So put on the thinking caps. Instead of complaining, let's do some innovative thinking. That's what the Democrats did. Here they come in a country that is basically mildly right of center, and they get this left-wing stuff through because they figure out how to do the vocabulary. They figure out how to use the tools they have. We got to do the same thing right now. Just to give you one quick example. The Republican National Committee and the Congressional Republicans, the House Republicans, haven't done a single survey in terms of figuring out what kind of message will get their message across to the American people. The other side does that incessantly, and when they come upon a theme, they hammer it home. Our people are using Stone Age weapons in the day of nuclear weaponry, and they wonder why they're losing.
You bring up an excellent point. Something that gets lost in this bellyache, and as you say, is that hey, the Democrats have done what they've done in a nation that still has a value system of being right of center. That's no easy task, accomplishing what they've accomplished. And like it or not, we should tip our hat to them and learn from them. I'm shocked and astounded at here we are in 2013, and as you say, we're using stone and hammer in a nuclear age, or however you phrased it. I don't understand how the Republican Party does not move into the current era. It's just mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. You look at the Romney campaign of 2012. Here's a businessman, a venture capitalist, and they had a system, a get-out-to-vote computer system that they never tested before Election Day, and the thing crashed spectacularly. Hello. I mean, that's 101, especially with any kind of software, which the government is now learning with these exchanges. These things are not easy to do, and you better test it thoroughly before you put it out there. You'd think Republicans would understand that, but we didn't.
We just learned as a result of this agreement that came out recently in the last 24 hours to keep the government open. Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, he was given an earmark of $2 billion for some dam project in the state of Kentucky. Democrat Dianne Feinstein, Republican Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, all kind of helped push this thing into passage. It's the sort of thing that here we are supposed to be in financial straits, and we're giving pork earmarks, if you will, favors to a senator who's up for re-election. Is it something that Republicans should be ashamed of? Is it something that Republicans should ignore? Is this something that a new breed of Republicans should come out and decry? I mean, after all, earmarks are nothing new.
No, and put aside maybe this dam is a good thing of help flood control or whatever, but there's a method in Congress called the appropriations process where you bring this stuff out in the open, make your case, and try to carry it through. But to try to slip it in when this thing was not in any of the previous drafts that they were passing around in the weeks leading up to this resolution, they just slipped this thing in the last moment. That's what disgusts people about Washington. They continue to play these games. So I think the American people are on the side for fundamental reform. They're on the side for a positive Reagan-esque approach based on American principles. We just got to have the leadership that does it. So I think you're going to see real pressure for these leaders either to get their act together or step down.
Yeah, and perhaps, as you say, perhaps the next Republican nominee to step forward, if that individual would attack these issues, that would indeed show leadership. A moment ago, you talked about the transformational steps are in place for the U.S. economy to make positive change. Getting back to the shutdown for a moment, unfortunately, while we may have avoided the government shutdown on October 17th, what we did not do, I should say, what leaders in Washington did not do, is address those issues, those underlying issues that created the shutdown in the first place. They just kicked the can down the road until after the first of the year, so to speak. do you think most American people are even aware of this fact? Do you think that most American people think that, well, the Democrats won and the Republicans lost?
Well, the Republicans, given what they could have gotten if they'd had a right strategy months ago, it's not as if this thing was a surprise brought up at the last moment. We've known for months we were going to have a debt ceiling crisis. We've known for months we're going to have a continuing resolution problem at the end of September, and we did nothing in advance to prepare for it. And so we got our butts kicked. And especially with a president like this, who is an ideologue, who knows what he wants to do and knows how to play that word game better than anyone else. And so we let him beat us. So shame on us. So let's move forward and set the stage for the 2014 elections. Start to put out a positive program. Start to put together databases so we know how to get messages out to various parts of the country. And stop complaining, and let's start doing.
Steve Forbes, it's a great message. Before we let you go, I want to touch upon one more topic here. You wrote an article very recently that said Janet Yellen and the Fed have much to answer for, so why all the cheers? Of course, she's been nominated to succeed Ben Bernanke at the Federal Reserve. You write that she is a big fan of a weak dollar. Elaborate upon that, please.
Well, when you have a weak dollar, you get the kind of punk economy we have today. And she thinks that printing pieces of paper creates prosperity. It's like going to a restaurant and saying, gee, if we come up with more coat checks, we'll have more coats in the restaurant. No, it's money represents goods and services and investments. And when you start fooling around with it, it's like saying, let's increase the number of minutes in an hour, and that will increase productivity. Or let's increase a foot from 12 inches to, or decrease it from 12 inches to 6 inches, and suddenly everyone is 5 or 10 or 12 feet tall. No.
All right. She's about to go in front of the Senate for questioning. You're expecting the Dems to go easy on her. The question is whether or not Republicans will go easy on her.